What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty here with another episode of Steelers Touching Under. I just want to say Happy New Year to everyone. I know it's been a bit of a crazy start to the year in all parts of the world. I know it's been a while since I did a video actually pre the Philadelphia game. So my 5 keys to victory, we're going to talk about how those 3 losses in a row have influenced the Steelers, what that means in this game, going into this game against Cincinnati. We will be getting the channel back up and running. This is actually a new platform that I'm recording on. I've gotten rid of StreamYard. StreamYard is problematic for a lot of people. It's very, very expensive in Australian dollars. I'm actually trying a new platform, so we'll see how that goes as the first video. I've also been doing in the background between the holidays, and I worked through all the holidays as well. Been starting all the draft stuff, so that's really exciting. Really keen to bring that to everyone as well. But let's resume usual programming, 5 keys to victory. All right, now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's going to be really important that they hit these 5 keys to victory. It's absolutely crucial that this happens. Because without it, they are simply not going to win against the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't care about homer takes on it. I don't care about where the Bengals are sitting and a chance of making the playoffs. This Bengals team will hurt the Steelers, even with some of the injuries that they have. Now, speaking of injuries, let's look at the injury report for the Steelers versus the Bengals. Now, we look at the Steelers in this situation. Justin Fields is full practice. That's a good thing. There was questions about his abdominal early in the week. The only players that are really out are Roman Wilson, who came back off IR, Cole Holcomb, and Logan Lee. Not surprised, but you bring them back, then you're allowed to use them in the playoffs. That's the whole point of this. Dante Jackson is questionable, obviously with that back situation and the nerve. They'll have to play this carefully. I think you kind of see Trice and Porter. I don't think he ends up getting a helmet. tongue tied there. That's what happens when changing Invisalign the day of the podcast. Moving on to the Bengals side of things, which I think is the bigger question, is Chase Brown, who is an absolute beast. He has been all year. I've had him on my fantasy team. He's absolutely won me weeks on his own. He's questionable. He didn't practice all week. Hopefully he doesn't play. That'll be helpful for the Steelers, depending when you're watching this. It may already been spoken about anyway. Jermaine Burton, their wide receiver taken in the draft this year, is out. Sam Hubbard, their D lineman, their pass rusher, he did not practice all week. He's out of the game as well. Now, they've got a bunch of guys designated otherwise as unspecified and as questionable. I think the unspecified guys you will likely see play. Guys like Orlando Brown and Joe Burrow Jr. Joe Burrow. The same thing with T. Higgins. But I think you'll see T. Higgins play even though he's questionable. Trey Hendrickson, unspecified. He was full practice. He's playing. Hudson, Jackson, Jenkins, I think they're playing. Now, when it comes to Myers Mims, Drew Sample, and Cam Taylor-Britt, they're all questionable. Now, if Sample and Taylor-Britt are out, that could be very beneficial for the Pittsburgh Steelers because Cam Taylor-Britt is a hard-hitting cornerback, and Drew Sample has definitely caught some yards, some balls this season and gone for some yards. Myers Mims, he's out. That's going to help the pass rush. So, with that situation being the case, from the injury report perspective, you kind of like where it's heading in the Steelers' favor and a couple of the key Bengals players potentially being out of this week's game. Let's get into the 5 keys to victory now. Now, I have said every time I've done one of these videos, and this has been a rough season, and when the season comes to close, I'll share a bit more about things that have gone on and challenges I've had putting out videos. But from the perspective of, you look at the loss against Philadelphia, loss against Baltimore, loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. 3rd down conversion and time of possession, 2 separate keys to victory for me, 2 go hand in hand, have been awful, right? 3 out of 10 on 3rd down conversion against Philadelphia, right? 3 out of 10. Then against Baltimore, it was 4 out of 10. And then Kansas, I think it got back up to 50% at 8 from 16. But otherwise, you're looking across the average, and it's insane. It's like 14 from literally 36. Barely 34. Barely 36%. That's just not good enough. I've said this before in 5 keys to victory videos. If you are not hitting on 44 to 47% 3rd down week in, week out on average, you are not going to win in the NFL and be one of the top echelon teams. It's just very hard to do, right? Very hard to do. Now, Kansas City only had 3 from 10 against Pittsburgh, so that's worth thinking about. Baltimore only had 4 from 10. Again, that's worth thinking about. But Philadelphia were like 10 from 17. Right? 10 from 17. Time possession. Let's go there. That key to victory. 20 minutes. They had the ball for a third of the game against Philadelphia. Not good enough. Against Baltimore, they had their ball for 27 minutes 35. So much more even split. But again, they've got to be over the 50% mark if they're gonna show an improvement on what we've seen before and certainly solidify a win against the Bengals. Then you got Kansas City. The Steelers actually did dominate possession. But this leads in to the next key to victory, and that is turnovers. They have to win the turnoff battle. Going into this 3-game stretch, this 3-game and 11-day stretch where they had 3 losses, they were like plus 16, I think it was. I think they were number 2 in the league on turnovers. They got to get back to that. They got to get back to that number. But they committed 2 turnovers against Kansas City. They committed two against Baltimore, yep. And then they committed 1 against Philadelphia. 5 turnovers. That's an average of over 1.75 each of these weeks. Again, just not good enough. So I think it's 1.66. But the point being is it's almost 2 turnovers they're averaging a game. And 2 turnovers is going to be costly when you're playing really good teams. That is going to cost you the game in some instances. And in this case, they lost all 3. So you can argue the impact that it had. Pure and simple. The next key so that's 3 keys to victory for you. Time possession, third downs, and certainly in terms of the way that they are basically being able to not turn the ball over and get turnovers themselves. Next one. Sacks, before I go back to offense. Sacks. 2 sacks against Philadelphia. 3 sacks against Baltimore, and then it fell off against Kansas. And then they had the 5 sacks against as well. They've got to keep this up. They've got to get to the quarterback. If they don't get to the quarterback, they're going to be in big trouble, right? The ability... them getting... What am I saying? They've got to get sacks, and they have got to prevent sacks. They were sacked 5 times for 43 yards against Kansas City, 3 times for 19 yards against Baltimore, twice for 21 yards against Philadelphia. 10 sacks... That's an average of over 3.3 a game. This has got to improve from the Steelers. And otherwise, you are not going to sustain drives, which is going to help your third down conversion rate, your time of possession. And that's also not going to... those sacks lead to pressure situations, which lead to turnovers. Strip sacks, fumbles, all those things. Right? Not good enough. My 5th key to victory is the offense. Now, I don't think that Arthur Smith has done enough to get sacked at the end of the season, to get fired. You're out of here. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Would I want to see it, depending on who's available? Yeah, I kind of would at this point. I don't care about the winning in the playoff games. I don't think I don't think he's the worst offensive coordinator ever. He's certainly better than Matt Canada, but I don't see it. I keep hearing talking about, not having the right players in the line and all this sort of stuff. That's just where I sit on it. Passing. Yards, they're 25th in the league. 25th. Now, they're 18th for TDs and only 3rd for interceptions. That's great, right? 17th net yards per attempt. That's pretty good, actually, for this team. It's pretty good, the halfway mark. Rushing, they're 10th overall in yards, but they're only 19th overall in TDs. They've really struggled to score touchdowns when you look at it. 18 in passing TDs, 19th in rushing TDs. 24th in yards per attempt. They have got to be potent. And I think the key man here really is Jaylen Warren. I think it's short passing to him, and I think it's running him early and running him often over Najee in this. I think the Steelers have got to hold the ball, as I've talked about, both in terms of converting those third downs, the time possession, not turning it over, and the run game is going to be key. Now, I thought we'd see a bit more of Harris against Kansas City. We didn't really see that. They played a very good defense as well. But when the Steelers are making mistakes and the Kansas City got up, it took the running backs a bit out of the game. But I want to see Warren early and often because, as I said all last year, where there's a Wazza, there's a way. Where there's a Warren, there's a way. He's a cannonball. I think this is absolutely key for the Steelers. So you got to give my 5th key to victory is give Warren the football, passing game, run game, early, often, and then use that as a way to bring Najee into the rotation. That's going to be really key. But I think that Warren needs to, if Warren's on the field 2/3 of the time and Najee's only on the field for a third, or it's even more to Warren's way, that's what I think needs to happen in this game for the Steelers to get a victory. All right, so they're the 5 keys to victory. Turnovers, don't commit them. Sacks, don't let him sack Joey Burrow. Third down, you gotta be plus 45% on third down. You have to dominate time possession and give the freaking ball to Warren. A couple of other things I wanted just to make some general comments on that I wanted to put out there while I've been sourcing this new platform that we're recording on today, and hopefully it goes well for you. But you're certainly around the offensive line. I've been doing a bit of thinking about the offensive line, and it was funny. I was going to put out a video whilst I was changing over to this platform and doing some test runs the day that Kaboli came out with it. Funnily enough, I should have put it out. It's easy for me to say I was going to put it out and then it was talked about. But effectively, I do think the Steelers are in a situation where they're going to have next year, you don't re-sign Dan Moore, right? I don't think you go down that path. I think you look at drafting or seeing what free agents are out there, and I'll have some more content coming on that on the tackle side of things. But you go to the well again, and you go and get probably a left tackle. I think Broderick, this is the thing, like I was all Broderick Jones playing at left tackle was going to be a left tackle. At this point, you've played him so much at right tackle, I think you've actually got to keep him, I think you've got to keep him at right tackle. I'd rather see that. Unless there's a first round definite right tackle, that's the only position they can play. Honestly, that's the way that I see it at this point, is that you've got to, you just leave him there. Now, Sam is on contract. Obviously, Mason McCormick's been playing. James Daniels is off contract. James Daniels will move on. From my perspective, they're your guards. You've got Spencer Anderson still on the roster. You've got the ability for Frazier to move if he had to, but you obviously don't want that. You want him to stay center. I think if you get a guard center late in the draft, you go get him. But I actually think for Tanu, you start thinking about he's missed his whole rookie year. You know, we had all the talk about him being drafted to play tackle. Most people in the league know that this guy could be an excellent guard. Do you just do that? If you're missing but the bonus for the Steelers is that they can continue the current plan. Broderick shifting to left with Dan Moore going, Fatano being healthy, playing right tackle. And then if they then someone falls to them, then they've got the option, and then they can kick Fatano inside. I do think Fatano will finish his career at guard. That's just how I see it. So that's going to be really interesting on the offensive line. At the cornerback position, the Steelers are going to have to make a big call now with Dante Jackson. Big fan of Dante Jackson, but this back injury could be very interesting. Likewise, at linebacker, I think obviously Cole Holcomb's on contract. You've got Queen. Bring back Roberts. Got Peyton Wilson. I think you want to solidify that linebacking core. That is really key for me. But the Steelers have got to go, even if they keep Dante Jackson going to cornerback, even if Corey Trice Jr. proves his mettle this offseason. Pierre is... I can't believe how many people are fans of James Pierre. I think he's stood up. I think he's been put in compromising situations, but he's just not starting caliber. The Steelers need to figure out, probably not in free agency, if they are going to keep, Dante Jackson on the roster. I think you got to draft a first 3 rounds. You've got to spend it on a cornerback, not just a wide receiver. And that's absolutely crucial. As for quarterback, I'll get that into that in the coming weeks. You'll see what my thoughts on that. I think enough people are talking about quarterback at the moment. But I'm Matty P. As always, go Steelers.